We have to understand that country music is always going to be changing and evolving.
You could say whatever you want, but that's country.
Yeah, it looks like a homemade shoe at this point.
He's just using 2 fingers.
That's what
crazy.
I saw, yeah.
So
How?
I don't know. It's Beyonce.
Welcome back. We're talking about the top 10 moments in country guitar history. I'm joined by Mr. Eugene Edwards. He's been playing with Dwight Yoakam for the past 10 years or so, and also has his own XM radio show
Called Cowpunks and Now Punks on channel 349.
And also Mr. Lewis Thomas, who is one of the up-and-coming country singer-songwriter guitar players in Los Angeles. If you haven't checked him out yet, check him out.
Thanks for having me.
Let's get right into number 1. Eugene, take it away.
Okay, 1927. Bristol, Tennessee, the big bang of country music. The Bristol Sessions was basically a situation where a couple of guys, Ralph Peer and his partner, they put out an ad in newspapers, beckoned people to come from all over the rural parts of America, Appalachia and those parts, because they knew there was music out there that was being played but wasn't being heard on the radio. People came from near and far. We got 2 major finds out of this week-long session, essentially. We got Jimmy Rogers, very, very much helped define the lone man with a guitar sort of archetype, but also the Carter family. And the Carter family had a guitar player. Her name was Maybelle Carter. And she's actually the first significant guitar player in country guitar history. And she was known for a style known as the Carter scratch. What that essentially means is she would play the melody on the lower strings with her thumb, and then pretty much on the offbeat would just pluck a triad. And so she... That's a very, very influential style of guitar playing all of a sudden. Like that sort of defined country guitar at that time.
You need to be able to play the melody and the chords underneath without having a second guitar player.
Right. A lot of country guitar in general is born out of that necessity, just practicality.
Yes.
You know?
And that's kind of the definitive thing that sets it apart from Travis picking or something like that.
Right, which
we'll talk about soon.
Comes later. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to number 2. Merle Travis playing on Town Hall Party. Check it out.
When we talk about Travis picking, Travis refers to this gentleman here, Merle Travis. And obviously, there's a thumb pick involved, much like Maybelle Carter. When you Travis pick, what do you do?
Okay, I would do...
Me too. Right, so you're using thumb, index, and middle, right?
That's right.
What's he doing?
He's just using 2 fingers.
So
how?
I don't know. In the 50s, we actually start to see Merle Travis playing guitar on camera. And first of all, there's like, oh, you mean that was just one guy? There's that revelation. And then you realize, that, oh, he's been doing it with just 2 fingers the whole time. Moment number 3, 1951, Leo Fender comes out with the Telecaster. Look, when we knew we were doing a show about country guitar, we all just grabbed Telecasters.
To bring a Tele.
So it's not the first electric guitar. It's a very different animal than what had been going on before. Les Paul and guys like that had pretty much been taking archtop guitars and putting pickups on them.
That's right.
Fine. Problem is, the guitar is still relatively hollow and open, and you're going to get feedback. So instead of trying to turn an archtop guitar and electrify it, Leo pretty much took a lap steel, which were very popular, and he said, well, wait a minute, this is solid, and it resonates beautifully, and we know the pickup goes there, there's a neck here, and the strings are there, so what if we just did this? It's just this immediate twang. So this really helps define the West Coast and what is later known as the Bakersfield sound. The Telecaster plays a big role. So Leo's out here in Southern California, and there was a guitar player named Jimmy Bryant, pretty much the best player out here. And in fact, we have a clip. Let's listen to Jimmy Bryant, get an idea of what this guy's all about. Jimmy Bryant was the first player to endorse Fender Telecasters, actually. So that's a significant player in the history.
Next up, let's talk about one of the most influential Telecaster players of all time, James Burton.
We could do a video series on James Burton.
So James Burton was originally from Louisiana, and he came out here to LA because Ozzie Nelson from Ozzie and Harriet, his son Ricky Nelson, was starting a rock and roll career, and Dad, I want the guy that's playing on Susie Q. I want that lead guitar player. And so he went and got James Burton. So here's a clip of Ricky Nelson doing Hello, Mary Lou on that television show, 1961. And James Burton is playing the lead. Now, he's playing on a Jazzmaster on this one, but on the record, he is playing a Telecaster. Check this out. And notice, I was picking out that he's doing what we call hybrid picking.
And hybrid
right.
picking.
And when we're doing these things, to say any one thing or anyone is the first is really tricky in art. It's hard. But as guitar players, when we come to hybrid picking, whether we know it or not, we're usually trying to play a James Burton lick at that point. Flat pick between thumb and forefinger, and then these guys.
Yeah.
Number 5, Willie Nelson gets Trigger. Trigger is the 1969 nylon string Martin acoustic guitar that he's been playing since 1969. And any stock picture of Willie Nelson will be him playing Trigger. And you know, it's got this hole gouged out. He said everybody sign it. And so it looks like a homemade shoe at this point. Well, should we see a clip of Willie playing Trigger so we get an idea just...
Yeah.
So in that case, you know, he's basically playing like minor pentatonic blues over this fast shuffle, like any hot shredder would normally with a telly or something.
Right.
But he's got this nylon string guitar. It's such a significant move. It's just, he doesn't care what the rest of the world sounds like.
I was also watching a video on how that guitar and the sonic footprint of it it shaped his whole band. It shaped how his whole career evolved.
That makes sense.
Around that sound.
Yeah, he's definitely in the top 10.
All right, next up we have Danny Gatton. Let's take a look at the clip.
Here he kind of strikes out on his own, and now people were going to go see a guy just shred on country guitar. He's not the singer. He's, you know, he's not known as a songwriter for other people or anything. It's just the spectacle of country guitar. I wish I could make it a top 10 moment. It was pretty much World War II. Is a massive moment in country guitar. Many musicians, people in general, had to go in service of the war. Your big Western swing band just disappeared. And so now your guitar player had to pretend he was the twin fiddles that you used to have. So you get your double stops. All that sort of stuff. But Danny takes it further where where a lot of lap steel players would have a tone, basically just a tone pedal to do these swells. He, in that clip, I think you hear him do this. He does his, he'll just do it by hand. He's just doing all these things at once.
And he's also crossing over to other genres.
Yeah.
Because if you listen to the beginning of that Austin City, is this country? It's not really a country track you would think of, right?
Very blues.
Yeah.
Which brings us to number 7, the neo-traditionalist movement in the mid-'80s. Okay, so what's this about? So in the early 80s, country was like in what I consider a weird place. It was very successful, urban cowboy. Country had absorbed disco music quite well. But when we're talking about guitars, it wasn't really guitar-centric as much. It had wandered from its Maybelle Carter, Don Rich, Bakersfield, the twang wasn't quite there. That movement kind of died down. The urban cowboy thing faded out. So you had Katie Lang, Lyle Lovett, Steve Earle. They were kind of doing this really traditional form of country. They were playing more honky-tonk stuff. The tones were kind of retro, but the imagery was kind of a little forward in rock and roll. And my man Dwight Yoakam was definitely a big part of this. And I'm going to mention Dwight because his lead guitar player and producer, Pete Anderson, big hero of mine. Here's a clip of Pete Anderson. And you have to understand, he was bringing back a lot of traditional stuff at this time when he was doing this. Just straight up playing, just really, really bold playing. And there wasn't a lot of that going on for a number of years, at least in country music's forefront. So I do my best to pay tribute to Pete and try and play those parts as best I can.
We have to talk about Garth Brooks at some point, but specifically the solo on Friends in Low Places. And I guess we should mention that it was Chris Leuzinger. I don't know who it is. Chris, that's the guy that played the solo.
I got introduced to Garth Brooks through a record which had Friends in Low Places on. They would take a Telly or a Les Paul and they would do this. Grease it up so we can get some overdrive. And the solo, which we're going to play in a second, it's still country, but it's rock.
Right.
But everything else around it is country.
The flavor, the tone of it had this
a rock character for sure. Let's play it.
So here's 2, 3, 4. So right, so you still had like
Yes.
the bands, and you're pretty much it's a restatement of the melody, but you're right, that tone. Garth grew up listening to Kiss records as much as he listened to James Taylor records.
Exactly.
We can have two thoughts at once.
So number 9, we were talking about Neo-Bluegrass, or you were saying Newgrass.
It may
You
not
guys
have
are
a
the
proper name yet.
Well, yeah, let's see what happens there.
yeah.
But I remember going on YouTube and I saw this cat playing bluegrass, and I didn't know anything about bluegrass. And his name is Billy Strings. He was the first sort of bluegrass guy who went through the roof on YouTube with a bluegrass video.
Bluegrass playing will always impress me.
Yeah.
The flat picking, it's just like, oh yeah, those guys. The Newgrass revival was like in the early 80s, Bella Fleck and
Fleck,
Sam
yeah,
Bush
right.
and Tony Ray. So this is just something else. This is something very, very much within the past 10 years. Although I almost feel like post-pandemic, when people
Right.
go back out to shows,
Yeah.
he came out the other side and it was just like huge
Yeah.
numbers all of a sudden. My big crush in music is Molly Tuttle. It's so good. God, her band is so good. No effects, no pyrotechnics, no tricks
Exactly.
and gadgets. They just stand there and they hold their ground with their playing, and great, just pitch perfect singing. And they have really young audiences. That's what's important.
That's the cool thing.
So I'd like to end with posing you a question for the last one, really. Is country guitar having a moment in 2024? You have the Post Malone record that came out, you have the Beyoncé record that came out.
So this is something about country music in general. It has always been able to absorb whatever else is going on in music. Go back to big band jazz, we'll have Western swing. When rock and roll came about, rockabilly. Hip hop and R&B, we got you covered. We can do that too. Country guitar is having a moment. Now, not in the way that we've been talking about a lot of shredders. The Cowboy Carter record, this is the first album of hers where the main chordal instrument is an acoustic guitar.
Yep.
And people say, like, it's not really country. It's like, well, don't have that debate. That debate is over 100 years old, so let's not do that. Let's talk about what is country about it. And that's one of the things. The acoustic guitar is this common denominator on all that material. The song, Protector.
Yeah, Protector.
Where you're almost kind of hearing the Maybelle Carter scratch style. It's not that you're going to hear, like Brad Paisley style shredding on it. You don't have to. It's the idea that you're hearing dobro, you're hearing acoustic, you're hearing flat picking, you're hearing hybrid picking, you're hearing those elements. It's Beyonce. It's like it's as big as it gets.
Yeah.
Same thing with Post. He grew up in the Dallas area. When we first met him, he was a guest on Dwight's Sirius XM show. And I didn't know anything about the guy. Dwight interviews him, and then he grabs Dwight's Gibson J200. He said, "Can I play this?" And Dwight said, "Sure." And then he just he does a whole verse of "Don't Think Twice, It's All Right" by Bell, and fingerstyles the whole thing, just runs through it. And I remember sitting, hearing it on the intercom, thinking, "Oh, well, I guess we know he can do that." And so we did a song with him this year. The single's out, and that was a thing where Dwight just wanted, so we should have Post do an actual traditional honky tonk song with fiddle and steel, and I'm actually playing a baritone guitar on that to get it like as twangy as possible.
Cool, yeah.
Right.
And he's an absolute joy. And he had so much fun with it. We have to understand that country music is always going to be changing and evolving, and we have to allow for that. Otherwise, we wouldn't get a Willie Nelson or a Dwight Yoakam or just name it. They upset somebody when they came along.
I was just thinking about Beyonce, her,
Texas Hold'em.
Texas Hold'em.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want, but that's country.
Yeah,
It's cool. It'll be interesting to see what the viewers think of this.
If we didn't mention someone, we were short on time. We just didn't get to it. You can mention in the comments, and people they'll listen to you. Talk to each other. Keep
We're gonna
talking
do
to each other.
a volume 2.
Well, guys, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank
This
you.
has been
Thanks
an
for having
absolute pleasure for me. I mean, I've always been country adjacent. I'm kind of into Americana, but I'm not really a country player. So I've learned so much from both of you, and in the process of researching for this a little
I'll
bit.
book you for a lesson.
You don't need to do that now because we have your new course coming out, Beginner Country Soloing at Pickup Music. You can check it out, free 14-day trial with the one and only Eugene Edwards. There's lots of country content available at Pickup. All right, so thanks a lot for watching, and thanks to our esteemed guests. We'll see you on the next one.